Hello everyone. In the United States, the Wyden family company's botched experiments with the mutagen resulted in the deaths of 3 animals. One of these 3 animals is a rare albino gorilla with exceptional intelligence named George Okoye, who was raised by a primatologist named Davis. However, during a mission to save the monkey, the scientist realizes that he will have to save his friend and the entire world. Dr. Curie Atkins fights her way through the compartments of the Athena 1 space station. Due to a tragic catastrophe, all her colleagues are dead, and the station is on the brink of exploding. She reaches the escape capsule, but finds the hatch locked. The astronaut asks for help from Mission Control on Earth, but they refuse to open the hatch, ordering her to return to the laboratory and retrieve valuable scientific samples. Realizing that her life means nothing to them and that she has no choice, she goes back to retrieve them. Carefully, she collects 3 cartridges and takes them with her in her suitcase. However, on the way back, Curie notices that the animal used as a test subject, the enormous pivot, has escaped and is now chasing her. She laughs, dives forward, dodges debris and flames, and manages to board the evacuation pod at the last moment. She closes the door behind her, and the monster crashes into it. The pod takes off from the station. A moment later, Curie breathes a sigh of relief, but her happiness is short-lived as a frantic screw loosens, damaging the integrity of the pod. When the pod re-enters the atmosphere, it disintegrates and burns up in the intense heat, killing the astronaut and scattering the samples across North America. Meanwhile, experienced animal defenders lead a group of scientists to a sanctuary in San Diego, California. They have been working for a long time as primatologists and know the place like the back of their hands. Connor, their young colleague, tries to impress another member of the group, Emmy, by recounting his fight against poachers in Uganda. Suddenly, Davis orders everyone to stop, warning of grave danger. But a minute later, they have to cut short their chat as they step out into the clearing. They see a group of gorillas in front of them. A young male is a newcomer to the sanctuary, and he is acting too aggressively, trying to get the attention of 2 females. After comparing him to Connor, who just displayed similar behavior, Davis intervenes and uses sign language to shoo away the gorillas he knows, leaving them alone. They calm the nervous male, but that's when George, the adult albino gorilla, emerges from the bushes behind him, not very happy to see a newcomer in the pack. Pivot is also stressed, and Davis orders his colleagues not to move. However, inexperienced Connor doesn't listen and, in a panic, starts to retreat to avoid getting caught between 2 fighting gorillas. Pivot reacts and chases after him, knocking Connor to the ground. But he is saved by George, who throws the aggressor aside. Pivot retreats and hides in the bushes. Connor thanks George, who mocks the frightened humans. The monkey finds the whole situation amusing and uses sign language to explain that George's approach wasn't very kind and that he should be more patient with Pivot. Poachers killed the newcomer's family, so Connor asks George to take the young orphan into his family and be kind to him. The gorilla behaves as if he were an old friend of Davis, engaging in playful banter in sign language. It seems that Connor himself taught him inappropriate gestures that he now regrets. In the end, George promises to accept Pivot and gives Davis a friendly check. Shortly after, Emmy makes an attempt to invite Davis to spend the evening discussing gorilla submission techniques. It seems like a subtle invitation for a date, but Davis refuses, wanting to spend time alone. Nelson, his colleague, doesn't understand why Davis prefers the company of animals. On the same night, pieces of the evacuation capsule fell into the wildlife sanctuary. The 3 sturdy barrels that Dr. Care managed to retrieve from the laboratory survived re-entry into the atmosphere and remained almost intact. George finds one of the samples. It's a green substance that enters his body. A cartridge drops near a wolf in another area, and an aquatic animal eats the 3rd one. Davis has been informed about a strange incident at the sanctuary, and the next day, he and Nelson enter the grizzly enclosure, where George snuck in during the night. To their horror, they see the carcass of the bear, but Davis orders Nelson to put down his rifle so as not to provoke the gorilla. George hides and appears very frightened. The bear also injured him, and the gorilla regrets what he did. He comes out of the cave, and it is quickly evident that he has grown enormously overnight. In the jungle, the scientists find the container that fell from the sky, and they take it to the laboratory. In his office, businessman Brett Wyden is furious and destroys a model of the Athena 1 space station. His company has invested a huge amount of money in the project. His sister Claire visits him to tell him that all is not lost. Even though the station is destroyed, the results of their Rampage experiment must have survived the fall to Earth. if they can retrieve the samples, clients will pay a lot of money to have them. Brett Wyden fears that if someone else gets hold of them, the company's plans will be revealed, and he and his sister will go to prison since their experiments were illegal. To retrieve the samples, the Wydens seek help from a mercenary named Burke and his private military company. The second cartridge's crash site is the urgent destination for the soldiers' helicopter flight. There they discover that someone has already emptied it, with the corpses of an entire wolf group nearby. Claire orders the soldiers to capture the mutant responsible for this. The Wydens are not the only ones who know about the incident. Scientist Kate Caldwell hears a report about the space station explosion and the debris that fell into the sanctuary. She is shocked because she was aware of the secret experiments. Although she is once again late for work, Kate lies to her boss, claiming that a car spontaneously exploded in traffic in front of her, and she heads straight to the sanctuary. Meanwhile, Davis and Nelson place George in a cage to examine his vital signs. They discover a lethal dose of growth hormones in the gorilla's blood, and the amount increases with each test. Nelson fears that George may no longer be the friendly gorilla he knows. He wants to report the incident to the authorities, but Davis, knowing that George would be shot, instead he wants to do his best to heal his friend. Nelson promises to find as much time as possible for him. Soon, Kate arrives at the sanctuary and claims to be an employee of Energy, stating that she personally worked on the mutagen. Davis doesn't trust her until she explains what is happening to George and assures him that she alone can cure these troubling symptoms. To do that, she needs to conduct research and determine which genes entered the monkey's DNA. Energy worked on a substance that integrated the best qualities of different species into the genes of test subjects. Kate is very surprised to see an albino gorilla that understands sign language. In the meantime, they have to feed the gorilla, as he has an insatiable appetite due to his rapid growth. Suddenly, George becomes agitated and destroys his cage. Davis, except for Kate, escapes the falling bars, but the gorilla runs away, disregarding Davis' orders. He breaks through walls, causing panic among employees and visitors outside. The police quickly arrive at the scene and prepare to open fire on the gorilla. Davis reassures them and claims to have the situation under control. He is able to temporarily calm George, who is once more alarmed by his own actions. But before they can agree on what to do next, a helicopter appears and a sniper shoots tranquilizer darts at the gorilla. George resists for a moment before falling unconscious. Meanwhile, Burke and his team discover a mutant wolf. They manage to shoot at it from a helicopter, but instead of finding a corpse, they only find a huge paw print. A terrified herd of deer suddenly rushes in front of the soldiers, and then a 9-meter-tall wolf starts attacking people. It doesn't stop, and its thick skin deflects all bullets. Burke, the last one standing, orders the helicopter to save him. As they approach, a soldier unleashes a barrage of machine gun fire at the wolf, but the colossal mutant effortlessly jumps and delivers a powerful strike, breaking the helicopter's blades and causing it to crash to the ground. The squad leader realizes that there is no way to survive and gets eaten by the wolf, just like the other soldiers. The Wydens watch the live stream of the massacre and realize they need a new plan. On the same night, Davis and Kate are apprehended and taken to the airport in handcuffs. Russell, an FBI agent, stops them on the grounds that they may be engaging in illegal animal experimentation. Heavily sedated, George will be transported on the same plane as Davis. Davis tries to exert pressure on Russell, but the confident agent ignores him and instructs them to prepare the plane for takeoff. The scientists sit next to the cage, and soon they notice that George's injuries are healing very quickly, because of the genes that enhance regeneration. As Russell presents a classified file on Davis, it is revealed that he has extensive experience in conflict zones. The agency mocks the man who abandoned his military service to chase poachers and spend time with monkeys. Now Davis realizes it's not a joke. The sleeping gorilla is constantly growing, and when he wakes up, he could kill them all. Russell assures them that he also adjusted the sedative dose. He also shows them a video of the second mutated animal, a wolf nicknamed Ralph. Russell is fed up with scientists creating dangerous monsters. He also reveals that Kate no longer works for NRJ. She was fired for attempting to steal prototypes before being arrested and spending a year in prison. Davis demands to know the whole truth and admits that she doesn't know how to cure George. Davis looks sadly at the gorilla, losing hope and his trust in Kate. The Wydens monitor the situation's development with their satellites. They know that their former employee has been arrested to prevent Kate from disclosing everything. Claire plans to kill her. To do that, she will activate a mechanism developed to control the mutant animals. A bat gene has been introduced into their DNA, allowing the mutants to hear a low-frequency radio wave using a powerful antenna. Claire activates a signal that irritates the animals, making them do their best to destroy its source. Trapped in the plane, George becomes furious and causes an accident, taking unnecessary witnesses beyond. The remaining attracted animals will be destroyed by the military, and the Wydens will collect samples of their blood. Claire also has a substance that can stop the mutants' growth if something goes wrong. So she activates the antenna on the roof of the Energy headquarters in Chicago. Ralph immediately forgets the bus he was about to devour, and an unknown aquatic mutant, the size of a ship, heads towards the city. George, as well, was restless on the plane. Despite massive doses of sedatives, he escapes from his cage, manages to push Kate aside, and frees himself from the handcuffs. Meanwhile, the enraged gorilla destroys the plane. Davis orders them to open fire, but George quickly overpowers the guards. At the same time, Davis finds a tranquilizer gun, but they are struck from behind, causing them to fall to the ground. The enraged gorilla approaches Russell, ready to unleash his fury on him, but Davis pleads with the animal and tries to calm him down. Taking advantage of the situation, a soldier shoots George from behind. The bullets ricochet, resulting in reckless shots that culminate in a catastrophic explosion of ammunition. This creates a massive hole in the plane, and the engines are severely damaged. The plane begins to lose altitude. Kate and her companions desperately cling to the plane, while Davis detaches a forklift that was carrying George's cage, pushing the gorilla against the wall. Davis then finds parachutes and manages to put them on themselves, Kate, and the unconscious Russell, after George knocks them out. They escape from the plane through a hole in the fuselage. Russell regains consciousness in midair and starts swearing. The plane continues to fall with the gorilla still inside. Davis has already said goodbye to their old friend, but they can't find the gorilla's body at the crash site. They see tracks and discover where George has gone. Claire becomes angry when she learns that Kate survived the plane crash. She is more concerned about the gorilla, which will soon reach their headquarters. FBI agents arrive at their door much earlier than expected, interrupting their conversation. They have a warrant to seize all the company's data. However, Claire also has a plan to get out of this situation. She claims that Kate Caldwell is responsible for all the experiments because she ignored the protocol and has a criminal record. Meanwhile, Kate tries to apologize to Davis for lying to him, but he doesn't trust her so easily this time, considering the consequences of her previous experiments. He could lose George forever. Davis has spent many years fighting wars and capturing poachers, painfully aware of the true nature of people who are capable of anything for profit. Davis remembers how he saved George, a little baby gorilla who was hiding under a car while the poachers brutally killed his mother. Those villains wanted to make souvenirs from his bones and fur. If it weren't for Davis, the rare albino gorilla would have been sold on the black market for a huge sum. Kate asks him what he did to the poacher. Unlike Davis, she seems to have confronted her trauma, as she still trusts some people. She explains that she started working on genetic modifications to help certain endangered species. However, that's when her brother fell terminally ill, and the work opportunity that Claire offered her allowed Kate to work on developing a cure. For a long time, Kate didn't know that her discoveries were being used to create deadly mutants. When she found out, she tried to destroy the research results, but she was caught, and while she was in prison, her brother passed away. Kate didn't even get to say goodbye to him. Davis pats Kate on the back, and they do a check with Russell. Helicopters airlift them to the base, where the colonel shows them pictures of George and Ralph running side by side in the city. Davis is surprised by the behavior of their animals, who would have never teamed up in the wild. Kate explains that mutants can hear a signal like bats. It seems that the source of the signal is located in Chicago, where they are heading. It is also where Energene is located, and it's the place where they can find an antidote to the mutagen. Knowing what the monsters are capable of, the scientists advise them to start evacuating the city, but the colonel refuses to listen to them and sends them outside. They try to escape, but they fail. They then decide to negotiate with the guards who are chasing them. This strategy also doesn't work, forcing them to use their exceptional combat skills. Davis quickly eliminates the two soldiers. Afterward, he and Kate decide to hijack a less guarded helicopter. However, they get caught for receiving stolen property. Kate explains that they need to reach Energene before the mutants in order to get the antidote and stop the disaster. As a token of gratitude for saving him, the agent gives Davis the keys to the helicopter and a cell phone to stay in touch. Meanwhile, the military tries to stop the mutants from approaching the city, but all their attempts to explode or shoot the wolf and the gorilla prove futile. On the screens, the colonel witnesses the death of an entire team, and he has no choice but to order the evacuation of the residents of Chicago. Russell talks to Davis, who has already flown over the city, where he sees Ralph and George destroying buildings and cars in downtown Chicago using their new ability. The mutants bring down all the helicopters and tanks trying to stop them, and the radars also detect a massive unidentified object in the river. Davis and Kate encounter a giant crocodile, much larger than the wolf and the gorilla, emerging from the water. Apparently, no weapon can harm it, and the colonel orders the largest conventional bomb available in the Army's arsenal to be dropped on the city center. Russell tries to change the colonel's mind, explaining that Davis and Kate will find the antidote, but the colonel wants nothing to do with the criminals who hijacked his helicopter. Shortly after, he receives the results of the investigation detailing the Wyden's activities. The FBI has been observing them for a while, and they now have physical evidence of their involvement in the ongoing chaos. As Davis and Kate land on the roof of the Energen headquarters and enter the skyscraper, Russell informs them that they have half an hour before the city is wiped off the face of the earth. After infiltrating the FBI and Claire's efforts to destroy all evidence, there is almost no information in the electronic database. They don't know where to find the antidote, but Kate remembers the layout of the laboratory and manages to locate a cooler with the antidote. She unscrews it and takes 3 vials, but the Wydens notice the intruders on the security cameras and come to arrest them. Claire says that the antidote reduces aggression but won't change the animal's size. She takes the antidote from Kate and shoots at Davis, causing him to fall unconscious. Claire takes Kate hostage and leads her to the roof, where a helicopter is waiting. However, they can't leave because George is already there. He reaches the source of the signal and tosses the helicopter aside. Kate is almost crushed, but Davis arrives just in time to save her. Luckily, the bullet narrowly missed her vital organs, and it turns out Kate managed to steal only 1 vial of the antidote. While George dismantles the antenna, they plan to inject him with the remedy, but their plan is interrupted by Claire. She holds them at gunpoint and demands that they distract the mutant while she escapes. Davis writes something to attract George's attention, and Kate seizes the opportunity to attack Claire. She takes the weapon from her and throws the cure into Claire's bag as they fight. George grabs and swallows the CEO of Energen and the antidote along with him. Meanwhile, Brett tries to escape by descending the stairs, carrying his computer and laboratory rat with him. He hopes to continue the family business alone, but Russell is waiting for him on the first floor. The agent promises to let him go in exchange for the evidence he possesses. Brett agrees, but as soon as he leaves the building, he gets crushed by falling debris. Russell chooses another exit to escape the crumbling skyscraper. The wolf and the crocodile are already crawling inside the building, while George begins to calm down thanks to the antidote. However, the skyscraper will collapse before he fully regains his senses. Davis and Kate then board the helicopter, realizing it's their only chance to leave the building before it collapses. Although it lacks a tail and can't fly upward, the main rotor will cushion the fall. Ultimately, they crash into an enormous monster as the skyscraper collapses onto the city streets. Kate and Davis survive the crash in the helicopter's cockpit. They quickly realize that the military may still launch the bomb on the city, even with the streets full of people. Suddenly, the ground trembles and George emerges from the debris. George is friendly again, but the other 2 mutated animals are still free. Davis instructs Kate to find Russell and stop the city bombing at all costs. He arms himself with a grenade launcher to help George in his battle against the mutants. The old friends stand together for a final fight against the monsters. The gorilla distracts the crocodile, fending off its attacks with debris from the collapsing skyscraper. George then confronts the wolf. It strikes George on the ground, but Davis distracts the predator with a well-aimed grenade launcher shot. The wolf lunges at Davis, but it fails to see the jaws of the crocodile coming for the same target. Ralph gets trapped in the giant reptile's mouth, meeting his demise. As Davis and George contemplate how to deal with the crocodile, Kate and Russell find themselves at a roadblock. They join forces to thwart the military's plans. Russell steals a satellite phone from a soldier and calls the colonel. Meanwhile, Davis resupplies on grenades, mustering his remaining strength to sprint through a dilapidated building, while skillfully avoiding the enormous jaws of the mutated crocodile. Just when all hope seems lost, George arrives in the nick of time, leaping onto the reptile's head and distracting it. At Russell's insistence, the colonel observes the scene with a drone. George's injuries worsen as the fight continues, but Davis throws a belt of grenades directly into the crocodile's ear, temporarily incapacitating the creature. However, it retaliates by striking Davis with its tail. Once again, George comes to his friend's rescue, but gets thrown into the building and impaled on a metal rod. The crocodile approaches to finish off the gorilla, but Davis distracts it by climbing into the fallen helicopter and firing ammunition. The armored reptile effortlessly deflects all the projectiles, leaving Davis with nowhere to go. His only hope is that his shelter can withstand the crocodile's assault. That's when George appears out of nowhere, leaping to pierce the reptile's eye with a long, sharpened rod in its only vulnerable spot. The monster finally dies. The colonel couldn't believe his eyes, but the two friends had indeed defeated the monsters. He immediately orders the cancellation of the bombardment, even though the city is saved. As a result of his injuries, George falls to the ground. He breathes heavily and closes his eyes before dying. He gives one final nod to Davis. That's when Kate and Russell find them, joining Davis in mourning his best friend. Davis, indignant yet relieved, tries to hide his tears from the gorillas. George continues to mock him, while Kate uses sign language to hint at a romance between them. They all laugh, and Davis starts cleaning up the debris. In the future, they will also need to find a new, larger home for George as always. You can find the name of the film in the description. In the meantime, let us know in the comments if you prefer to accompany people or animals. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and stay tuned for more recaps like this one.